Hello and welcome to episode 92 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Off-Topic Podcast. I'm Mike Sollosi, Monsoon on the boards, and we are here for some more EarthBound action discussion. And along with me is the same panel from a week ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, starting with Hilary Andreff.
Hello, good to be back.
And Robert Fenner.
I'm here, and I've got nothing witty to say, but I'm here and I love EarthBound.
And last, and I guess also least today, Keegan Lee.
Slightly offended, but thank you anyways. Glad to be here.
You're the only one that's playing EarthBound fresh, so
What was that about?
so you technically have the least EarthBound, the least EarthBound experience, the least EarthBound action in you. I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a rough mood right now. I don't know.
Grumpy boys.
Yeah, I'm just grumpy today. But certainly it has nothing to do with EarthBound, which is a cheerful game from start to finish, right up when you're are having your legs ripped off by a sibilant spirit or have your body transposed into a robot. EarthBound's a cheerful game.
Yeah. Took a turn.
It's been a hard time.
It ended with some more dark notes than I remembered from when I last played it 15 years ago. But that's hardly a complaint. It was fascinating, if anything. And so, Keegan, picking on you again, being the only person playing EarthBound for the first time, were there any moments in the second half of the game that jumped out at you a little bit that maybe you weren't expecting and particularly enjoyed, or maybe found harrowing?
Oh, geez, this story was weird to start with, but man, it just gets so dark towards the end. I still loved it, don't get me wrong, but I think for me personally, I didn't expect jumping way ahead at the final part of it, transposing into robot bodies. I had no idea that happened, and it was weird. And then seeing all the kids just sitting there while you hear surgical tools in the background, like, holy crap.
Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting choice that they only give the Nest robot any personality with the red cap. They couldn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't, give the Jeff robot glasses or the Paula robot a ribbon or something. And it was, and that whole final dungeon, I remember being creeped out by it as a kid and a little bit as an adult.
Yeah.
Because it's it takes away the the sort of the color and personality of the main cast, and suddenly you're just these 4 tin cans in a really bleak sort of dungeon going towards the end.
So much gray.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could notice it in battle, being from a first-person perspective, like an old Dragon Quest game.
And it's kind of interesting how the last little portion of that last dungeon, it looks a little bit more organic because you're getting really close to Gygas, but it's still really limited color.
Indeed.
Right.
So that kind of creeped me out a little. I think that's where I got creeped out.
Speaking of creepy things, jumping back to where we cut off in the last episode, Robert, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you mentioned being slightly traumatized by the Prince Pooh's segment. As a younger person.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, no, not really. It's a little strange how you meet him for the first time, because you eat some psychedelic cake, I think.
Yeah, you have an edible on the beach, and you end up in the shoes of Prince Pooh, who you can still save the game and talk to Dad, but he's like, you sound different. I don't know what that's about.
Oh, really?
And instead of a phone, you talk to someone in a trance.
It's like a guy with a phone on his head.
Yeah, he has phone-like hair or a phone on his head, and I think you're speaking to your dad through him. Which I don't know. I mean, between that and the birds in the Lost Underworld, there's some really special phone technology in EarthBound.
Yeah, so you take on the mantle of this prince from this sort of like Far Eastern mashup country, Dalam. It's a little bit India, it's a little bit China, it's a little bit everything. It's just kind of vague Asian country, and you're the crown prince, and you have to embark on this little mission of meditation to gain some magic abilities. So you go up to the top of this this little peak that you reach by a ladder, and he sits down and starts meditating. And all of a sudden, the music just like takes on this. It turns into like this really dark, like ominous low bass pad soundscape. And somebody comes from off screen and tells you to stop meditating. And you know, it's like somebody trying to tempt you away from enlightenment. It's like somebody trying to tempt Buddha. So you can walk away, but the game won't progress. So you have to sit and meditate, and then you enter like this battle screen with this like kind of disquieting looking translucent monk face who starts like asking for your consent for him to rip you limb from limb. And you know, you have to like not relent in the face of this adversity. So, you know, continue to allow yourself to be destroyed after the HP counter hits 0. And it's just like, it's described in quite graphic detail as well. And it just seems so almost completely at odds with everything that came before. It reminds me quite a bit of the Japanese horror story Hoichi the Earless, about the monk who he's in the haunted temple and he paints sutras, these warding characters, all over his body so he won't be attacked in the night. But you know, because of the way the body is shaped, he doesn't paint them on his ears, and he gets his ears ripped off. And yeah, I'm wondering if there's like a connection between those two, but I got a very similar vibe from those two stories of just, you know, somebody sitting in meditation and then just being, having a spiritual onslaught. It's really extreme. I think I had some nightmares as a kid after playing that sequence from the first time, because like the description of what's happening and the darkness of the screen and the ominous soundscape, everything just comes together in this real like psychological horror, spiritual horror bent that's not really like anything else that was on Super Nintendo, at least not in America.
Right, and
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the point of it is to completely free Pooh's mind, so that there's nothing left but his mind. And because after the spirit, you know, takes away use of his arms and legs, and you see his health go down to 0 as a sort of a special effect of that, and then also take away his hearing and eyesight, so the ominous music stops and the visuals cease. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting how they use like the game UI to illustrate everything that's happening to him in that sequence.
It's a little Nier Automata.
Yeah. Yeah, a little. That's keeping current.
And it's a perfect complement to the kind of like informed consent process going on during that whole sequence, which I thought was really, I think that kind of added to the ominousness to me. You know, this spirit is making sure you understand exactly what will happen if you don't have functioning ears or eyes, and he's explaining everything.
Having to agree to it, it's there's like an extra layer of horror to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Hilary said, the consent of it makes it creepier. But I'm not really sure how I processed that playing it as a kid. I guess I just accepted it as Pooh freeing his mind to get better mental powers. It seems more. It sticks out to me more playing it as an adult, as being really dark and creepy, and not just a simple meditation. But I guess it didn't affect me as much as it did Rob. Yeah, young Sollosi as much as it affected young Rob, I should say.
Yeah, I've got to say something similar. I think it was much easier, I think, for me to take it literally when I was younger and to say, all right, well, this is, you know, like a nothingness school of meditation that he's dealing with. So this is literally, you know, him going to nothing so he can complete his training.
And also, a quick side note to Pooh: whenever you speak to women in Dalam, they are all very interested in him.
Yes,
in a way that
he's got that cool hair.
Yeah, I'm wondering. It's like okay, now Pooh is maybe a very serious-minded kid now, but was he always this way? Was he a bit of a preteen playboy once upon a time in Dalam? And
everybody wants to get with the prince, though. Huh?
and jumping to the end, when you see a lot of different characters praying for you, it's not the elder or the townspeople in Dalam. No. It's all of the women.
Okay. And doesn't one of them have like a dream where he dies, which is a little different from the other areas as well?
Yeah, that did happen. That was how she got the prayer from Paula, I think, at the end.
Yeah, one of them goes, I had a dream where Prince Pooh died. I should pray for him. And then, like, 4 other women appear from nowhere, and they all start praying for Pooh. It just makes me very interested in maybe playing a sequel game about young Pooh. It's like, what would the events of this be? But
what's in a name, Pooh?
and his name is I laughed at it as a child. I will admit. It's like, I was like, Pooh, really? Okay, I'm playing with Prince Pooh, and he's maybe the second strongest teammate.
Yeah. Justina saw me playing, and she was like, "Did you name him that?"
I actually have to admit I changed it this time around. I made his name an amalgam of some of my martial arts teammates, actually.
I don't know if we addressed it in the first episode. Did we talk about if we change any of the names of the playables or the optional items?
I'm pretty sure we didn't talk about it.
Well, I didn't change anything except I changed the default PK Rockin' to PK Love, which is the Japanese default. But otherwise, I kept everything. Did any of you make any interesting changes to the defaults?
I kept the character names, but I changed the dog name to my old childhood dog, so my dog was Snowy, which fit once I saw the actual dog. And then I didn't understand when I was asking my favorite thing, so I was like, oh, I love comic books, so I was rocking out with Psy Comics the entire time.
That's interesting, because I know what you mean, but I'm imagining, Anthony Jeselnik and Louis C.K. being summoned and just making the enemy laugh and dealing damage.
I like that. Actually, I like that even better, and now that's what I'm going to imagine.
Oh my gosh, along those lines, I changed the default attack to Psi Occupational Therapy, actually, because I'm just really excited. Yeah,
OT represent.
There's enough spaces for Psi Occupational Therapy?
I abbreviated it to OT, but okay. I'm really excited.
Psi Overtime.
We're gonna get these monsters some grab rails, some drop down rails, maybe a long-handled sponge.
Well,
we're gonna give these monsters time and a half so they can save up for comp. And also,
I'm gonna give this monster a telephone assessment.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the flip side,
we'll help them get better. It goes along with the become tame or wit back to normal.
And
that's what I thought, at least.
And also, when you're choosing those names, if you hit don't care, you hit the default if you press don't care once, and they give you several other options if you continue pressing don't care. I remember one of them for Psy is Nuke, which makes sense. Like, okay, Psy Nuke, and it's a big flashy exploding thing, but that also implies that Ness's favorite thing is Nuke.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, whoa, okay. Whatever. I mean, we all went with comics and overtime and love, which are much better options for favorite things, in my opinion. So, okay, back to Pooh and the gang. Pooh joins you very suddenly, and which must have been a huge surprise to Paula and Jeff, who I'm not sure saw the same magic psychedelic sequence that Ness did. But then you have the whole team together, and Pooh is level 18 and maybe dies in the museum if you're careless like I am.
Yep.
Yeah. But he's real strong. It's weird that your sort of second mage has the second highest health in the game, and has a lot of difficulty eating certain things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh!
It's so annoying with him gaining 0 health or 0 PP from just because you mix the wrong thing together or something.
Oh,
and he refuses to use normal items or wear normal clothes. Come on, man.
I gotta say, though, I'm kind of annoyed that Pooh's only weapon has a 1/128th drop rate from an enemy you only encounter once in the game. Or you encounter in one area. Sorry.
That's some Final Fantasy Pinktails baloney. That doesn't belong in EarthBound at all.
It really annoyed me.
And with Pinktails, it's worse than Pinktails, because this is the only thing that Pooh gets. Mm-hmm. With Pinktails, it's, just a rare armor when there's plenty of armor to go around for all of your characters.
You can still get by without it.
Yeah.
I've never gotten it, ever.
I didn't get it this time either, but still, I mean, the completionist in us probably would like to see an item in every equipable slot for Pooh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, I don't know, an item that you can buy that just increases his attack by 1. That's not as good as the sword. It's like, just give us something. Come on, man.
I did take the time this time around. I decided that I needed to get at least someone's, and I like the idea of having the complete set, so I did get it.
They do a similar thing in Mother 3, where there's one character that can't equip any weapon in the game until you get a weapon for him in, I think, the second to last dungeon.
Oh.
Which is nice and satisfying. It's your dog. He gets like a bone item to carry around for the at the very end of the game. But yeah, the Sword of Kings rare drop in the Stonehenge dungeon is a little frustrating, and I honestly I'd forgotten what dungeon you meet the Starmen in, but I remember it was the Gold Starmen enemies that dropped them from the last time that I tried to get the rare drop. In that dungeon, I was having a little bit of a hard time because I don't know, Pooh and Paula kept dying, so.
Dungeon.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tough dungeon, and you only encounter the Super Starmen in the second half. So by the time I started encountering them, I'm like, oh, F this! I just want to get to the end. I'm not going to grind for a Sword of Kings.
And there's a convenient exit mouse right there.
That does help. I stupidly had stashed an exit mouse in with the Escargot Express, and they wouldn't let me pick up a second one.
Oh no!
I hate when that happens.
So I had to walk out by manually that time.
So wait, you get the Sword of Kings from Starman in Stonehenge?
Yeah, it's the Gold Starman.
For some reason, I had a memory that you got it from like a Kraken variant in Magicant. Is that a different item then?
That is the Gutsy
Yes.
Bat. That's the which is
that's
the,
another one in 128, isn't it?
I think it's easier than the Sword of Kings. I want to say, but I'm not sure. But I think, if my understanding is right, the Gutsy Bat has pretty good attack. It's not as high as the Legendary Bat, but its guts is 255, which is the max. So
lots of smashes.
Yeah, so you get a smash hit on almost every hit, and also guts is the stat which sometimes a fatal blow will leave you with 1 HP. So it'll make Ness much harder to kill and have him do critical hits all the time. But I think that's a better drop rate than the Sword of Kings, but I'm not sure. But I do remember it's the Magicant Krakens that drop that for you.
Yeah, I guess I got those two mixed up.
Mike, remember how last episode I had mentioned that I hadn't gotten the homesickness status at all?
Ah, right. So that did that hit you somewhere?
Yes, it did. Mid-grind in Stonehenge while I was trying to get the Sword of Kings.
Oh, boy.
Yes,
Oh, boy.
me too.
While everybody's low on PP, we're all dying. All of a sudden, Ness is just like, I want to go home, which I understand. Deep down, I understand.
Forget this.
This isn't fun anymore.
Man, that status effect hits hard when it does, though. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Ness can't do a damn thing in combat. You can still, have him heal outside of combat or something, but he is basically useless when he has homesickness.
Yeah, I actually had to backtrack all the way out because I didn't have an exit mouse, rest, and then come back. It was a brutal dungeon all around.
Yeah.
Also in there, just as an aside, near the end, I laughed out loud when I went to examine the test tubes with, Jeff's dad and the Apple Kid and, all these recognizable people in them, and it just said, no problem here. It was like,
No, if you check them, yeah. I mean, if you try talking to them, then they'll say all kinds of things about suffocating or near dying or please help us. But you check it, and it's just like, no problem here. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
This is normal. This is a test tube. Nothing unexpected here.
Yeah, I don't know what compelled me to try checking first, but yeah.
And I'll admit it. You are lying if you say this did not happen to you. I did try to talk to ATMs a couple times.
Yeah.
No, I'm an L button boy.
Yeah, that's how I played through it.
Oh, really? Oh, I wish I was that smart. I was navigating through dungeons every time, like I'm playing Dragon Quest III. I'm in dungeons, navigating through menus every time. But
Pressing the stairs button to go down the stairs.
Okay, maybe not like totally like Dragon Quest III,
Yeah,
but
not
yeah,
quite
I was slumming it up. I forgot that LNR let you do auto talk and check. Let's see, what else do we want to discuss before we really start getting into endgame stuff? Oh,
Well, Dungeon Man.
yeah, how about that Dungeon Man?
One of the best characters in the game.
So cool.
I remember when I first played this, I thought that the Dungeon Man segment with Jeff, which I don't think we talked about last episode, was a little strange, a little offbeat. It's like, okay, This Brick Road guy is weird, and and I didn't really totally understand it being a send up of like traditional dungeons and RPGs. But then when you meet him later, oh my god, how about Dungeon Man?
Yeah, he's living his dream.
Mm-hmm.
He's a hunk.
He cares deeply about dungeons in a way that I'm just impressed by.
Yes.
It's almost I think it's, you know, EarthBound's developers just having a little bit of fun and, like, I don't know, a peek behind the curtain in their creative process, but also, you know, hamming it up to be very exaggerated and ridiculous. It's kind of like How to Make a Dungeon, but like a joke of that as well.
All of those signs inside of him.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah.
It's like the sign at the end of this rope will say you're almost there, and then you get the next sign for sure. Right, just says you're almost there.
He's so friendly too. Like signs that say, "Oh, this is a dead end, but here's a present for you." It's like, thank you.
It's like
One of the core tenets of dungeon design: always put something at the end of a dead end.
Yes, don't be a slacker. Sometimes faraway items are better.
It's like sometimes items that are easy to find aren't very good, and then like the item was, I think, $5.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't remember Dungeon Man being this funny like 20 years ago when I first played this, but I thought it was just all of the signs and dialogue in that segment was just hilarious this time.
Oh, it's great.
And for when he briefly accompanies you as a party member, he's just wrecking everything.
Yes.
He's got this
happened for longer.
Yeah, but I think it's so perfect that he just gets stuck in the trees, and that's the end of Dungeon Man. The music when he accompanies you, it's this. It's one of the things that was speculated of why EarthBound didn't come to Virtual Console in the U.S. for so long. There is a very illegal drum loop from Sgt. Pepper making up his walking music.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that.
I think that happened a couple other times. It didn't happen to me, but I watched a video online with some of the EarthBound music, and one that I never heard in my game but saw in other people's videos was when you'd fight a weaker enemy, it would play a guitar riff that sounded a lot like Johnny Be Good. Or was it Johnny Be Bad? One of the two.
Oh yeah.
Frankie's music. I've never heard that.
That's the Chuck Berry song "Johnny Be Good." Yes, but
okay.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
I never really thought of that being a copyright problem. I guess it could have been.
Yeah, I don't think it actually was. It's different enough. The drugstore music is a very obvious MIDI recreation of the song "Dallas Rag" by the Dallas String Band as well. Oh. So these guys, they love their old timey music.
Oh, I mean, yeah, they have a whole Blues Brothers parody in there, and the Blues Brothers are if anything, a send up / celebration of old R&B music. I mean, John Lee Hooker's in the Blues Brothers movie, for goodness sake. Yeah, so a lot of interesting musical choices here, and also the music that takes place in Dungeon Man when you're exploring is this
discordant, messed up strings,
and one of the signs even says this
yes.
I made this music myself. It's my proudest accomplishment, or something of that nature.
Your regular John Cage.
I literally like everything else in your dungeon better, man, especially the benches.
Yes, those benches are nice.
Very nice benches.
Gotta put that in the EarthBound travel guide.
Yeah, oh man.
Best places to stay.
Oh, he's a special boy. He's got a yellow submarine inside of him.
Yeah, he does.
The color is just coincidence, though.
Oh, you need a submarine? I think I have one of those. It's like, wow, you are a very convenient giant tower man, Mr. Dungeon Man.
Crazy body.
It's unusual that he's a dungeon man, but he's above ground, so tower man might be a little more appropriate. I don't know. That's just a semantic argument, though.
I think there's also like a slight element of body horror with him as well, because you meet Brick Road the first time and he's just a dude, and then when you meet him again as Dungeon Man, it's just like his face sticking out of a wall.
kind of frightening.
What's going on inside that wall? Like, how is he connected to everything?
Yeah, really.
If I guess it does become body of horror if you think about that a little too deeply.
Yeah, possibly one of the other things you don't think too deeply about if you're younger, but maybe.
Right. Yeah, no, when you're younger, I did not take a body horror angle with it. I was just thinking, oh, there's Dungeon Man. Hi, Brick Road. What's up?
How did you get in there? This is horrible.
Can you get out?
He's just stuck in the trees forever now.
He can probably back out of it, but he definitely can't go forward because he's a giant dungeon man. He definitely can't knock over a tree or anything. That's just impossible.
Right.
True.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's back it up a little bit. Before you encounter Dungeon Man, you're in a town called Summers, and you have to jump through some hoops to get to a town called Scaraba. And one part of the game that I did not remember, that I was experiencing it basically fresh this time, was the Club Stoic segment.
It's really good.
It's so good. I can't believe I forgot about it because you sneak into this club where you have to basically pick up on the idea to you need to get magic cakes, and you need to maybe understand a little bit that there's some important hieroglyphics you should check out. But when you go in there, you're the only children in the club, and the adults are just talking nonsense the whole time. And one person in the club is a worker who even says, "Oh yeah, we're only serving them water and letting them talk about pretentious things." But it struck me so much as like kids listening to adults and adult conversations sounding so terrible and pointless in a way that I found very awesome.
Huh. I didn't think of it that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
Because I think a lot. I think we talked about this a little bit in the last episode. This is a game that wants to have you feel a little bit like oppressed children, because there's always adults telling you no, and adults getting in your way, with a few exceptions, and in a way, EarthBound sets sets a tone where. Children are the only ones that can save the world, but adults are always getting in children's way. And the whole Club Stoic segment made me think of that a little bit. Just like, yeah, this is children observing adults and thinking about how terrible they are. Maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit. And I just recently played Persona 5, so that could be informing this. But
a lot of rebellious youth in you right now.
Yeah, a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm just in an F adults kind of mode for the past several months. It's like, yeah, I'm part of the problem.
It's interesting because actually I was looking at articles and various things that have been written about EarthBound too, and one of the first ones that came up actually was EarthBound as a children's story, and it talked about that exact piece and how that was a good example of how EarthBound kind of gets in the head of someone in that kind of child stage of development, and kind of talks to them on their level. So that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting. That's a very interesting take on it. I personally didn't see it that way. As somebody who has an art school background and has spent a lot of time in pretentious, self-congratulating New Age art events, I saw it as kind of like a gentle ribbing on that kind of culture, where
Yes.
like everybody can like drop the most esoteric statements and buzzwords without really saying anything. And I saw that as kind of a gentle parody of that kind of culture. But there probably is some truth to your interpretation. I could see it because I didn't pick up on any of what was being said as a kid, and now that playing through it again as an adult, I can see like the absurdity. Except the anti-capitalist guy, I like him, but just the nonsense and circular talking.
The anti-capitalist guy may have been a case of self-insertion by Itoi-san.
It might very well have been, yeah.
It makes more sense if you played Mother 3, fellas.
Oh,
Yeah.
and actually, that Robert's point, actually, I think that points out a really cool thing about the game in general, is that, yeah, you can sort of see it as from the sort of adults talking perspective, or from the background that Robert was talking about. And I think it could be either, because there's that one adult in Club Stoic that works there and saying like, yeah, I let them say what they want. I don't really get it either. Like, they're just,
I don't want to ever say that EarthBound is grounded, because it is not. But I think around the time of Dungeon Man, sort of after the summer segment, is where it really... It doesn't, not necessarily jump the shark. It doesn't feel like it's changing its tone or betraying the player in any way, but it takes some weird turns. Starting, starting I think with helping the little cute Tendas overcoming their shyness, and then entering the land of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I think there's some really good bits and some memorable moments, but I think EarthBound is a game that front-loaded its best content. When you're doing the sort of whistle-stop tour of all the towns, I think that's like the most... It feels like the most wondrous part. Whereas this back half has a lot of dungeons that aren't very interesting and a lot of bits that don't... there's very interesting locations you visit, like the Tenda Village and the Lost Underworld, as you mentioned, but although they look great and they're fun to walk around, there's not so much of a society to explore.
It's less grounded, and none of the towns in the second half of the game are as fleshed out and interesting as Winnet, Toos, and Threed Fourside.
Yeah,
but even with that said, I think Lost Underworld is awesome only because of the scale reasons. If only because you're tiny characters that are only 3 or 4 pixels tall, and navigating very slowly around this large area, being chased around by dinosaurs.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's great.
Really neat to see. And I actually think I tried to rationalize the shift a little bit in my head as I was going along by saying, well, they had more information. Things are moving more quickly, but I don't think that quite cut it.
And I think we did mention this in the first episode, but I actually really like the gimmick in Mother 1 and in EarthBound of the MacGuffins you're chasing, the sanctuaries, each giving you a melody, and them eventually convalescing into a neat little song that you can listen to.
Very pleasant.
Yeah, it's very pleasant. You can listen to your Soundstone at any point in the game until you've completed the Magic Hand stage, which we will talk about in a minute or two. We have to talk about that. But that melody shows up in several points in the second half of the game. Both, I think, in the during the prayer segments and in Magic Hand and in the flashbacks, and I really like that. Just playing a song as the Link's Awakening thing, as sort of the thing you're assembling over the course of the game, I think is just very sweet and cute, and I'm into it.
Yeah, and I like the way that they did kind of make it, like you said, a sort of leitmotif toward the end.
Yeah.
I like the images that Ness gets in his head with each sanctuary.
Yes.
The little memories or flashes back in time. They're very charming.
All right, now I think we should just jump into it now. After you reach the 8th sanctuary, Ness is transported to the realm of his mind called Magicant, and basically just confronting his inner darkness and defeating it, this is jumping ahead a little bit, allows him to completely clear his mind and find his inner strength that's, the culmination of his entire past and all of his memories and all of his adventures. And then he gets some pretty huge stat boosts.
Oh God, yes.
And if he wasn't the strongest member of your party before, he certainly is now. And I don't know, man. It's that is very special to me. It's in a way it's finding his inner strength similar to Pooh's meditation, but in a much more a much more vivid, a much more deliberate way. And Magic Hand is completely crazy, even though you're only in there for about 20 or 30 minutes.
I think it's one of the most memorable parts of the game for me personally.
Agreed.
Oh yeah.
I also Magic Hand was one of the probably was the only area where I really made use of the rolling HP, because for most of it,
right,
or pretty much all of it, you're alone with Ness unless you recruit one of the flying men who don't have long lifespans, at least in my game.
Nope, they're good for maybe 2 or 3 random battles, and then the flying men are flying dead.
Yes, but especially with the bomb monsters, I would constantly get mortal damage, but because, Ness's HP is pretty high by then, I would just try my best to survive up until, like, I have 100 left, and then heal shortly after that. It was a nice use of the tactics, and something I'd like to see in another game. I don't know if they do it in Mother 3, but if they do, I'd like to try it.
They do.
Oh, yes!
There's one thing about that I found a little weird. In some parts of the game, especially the more challenging later dungeons, like the volcano dungeon in Lost Underworld and in the Stonehenge dungeon where the Gold Star men are, I thought it was really helpful a lot of the time to turn auto fight on. Because there's enemies in both of those dungeons that will deal a lot of damage, especially like the nuke robots that blow up and can kill Paula or Jeff in one hit. But but if you have auto fight on, then Ness and Pooh will cast the life up gamma spells basically automatically, so you don't have to navigate menus while your allies' health scroll down. And even if it's in the middle of a turn, Ness or Pooh can heal Jeff or Paula taking mortal damage. So
it saves time.
Yeah, it was time saving and made my characters less likely to die if I had auto fight on, which is
me neither.
Which is a strategy. Yeah, that's a strategy I basically discovered by accident. Starman.net probably has 1,000 forum topics on the subject that I obviously never read. But that whenever I fought an enemy that I knew could kill me in one hit, I would and I figured I could beat the battle without casting a freeze spell or a starstorm or something. I would put on auto fight and it'd be more likely to survive, which was not a strategy I was expecting to use going into this to playing the game for this episode. So Magicant, you end up finally defeating the whatever inner darkness you have, which takes the form of the Mani Mani statue from earlier in the game, which is a cool choice.
Mm-hmm. I think Magicant kind of confirmed a lot of what I was thinking about Ness having a very rosy perspective on his adventures. And I love the color shifts. Like after you talk to certain people, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was really awesome.
Yes, several of the ones in there, and I think they're changing colors to reflect their dialogue or perhaps a certain mood. But it's a really cool touch.
It's like a nice inverse to Moonside. But playing through Magicant again for the first time in many years. I can see where Yumi Nikki got a lot of its ideas for anybody who's played that freeware abstract game.
I have not.
Speaking of other games, actually, did anybody notice the flower kind of on the south side of the first area in Magicant and immediately think Flowey from Undertale?
Oh,
yeah. Yes, actually,
Whenever I see a sunflower that has sort of a that has a face, I think of Flowey from Undertale.
Fair enough.
Flowey's maybe the most memorable character from that game, especially if once you beat it and see his true face. But we'll have to wait a couple of years or a little while before we can have an Undertale episode of Retro Encounter. But man, that game
2 years old now.
That game is something. Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh shoot! I guess you're right because it came out in 2015.
That's right.
And I played it in fall of 2015. Yeah. Well, okay. Maybe I guess we can officially add Undertale to the list then. But we'll see. We'll see if that ends up happening. And Undertale is definitely a game that was inspired by EarthBound.
Without a doubt.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt. But, continuing with the EarthBound story, after Magicant, you really...
Hang on.
What?
Flying Man and his brothers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to give them some recognition.
Okay, all right.
All right, we can move on.
Pour one out for however many lost flying men you had over the course of this game.
I tried so hard to spare them. I did.
After I killed 3, I basically decided, you know what? I'm near the end of this. Ness is so strong. I'm my own flying man.
Oh, wind beneath my wings.
Flying man was just with you all along.
There you go.
Now we're getting into the end game. Before your souls are moved into robots, you have to go and get a piece of the meteor that was from the very first scene of the game, and find your way to Gygas's realm, and he's attacking you from the past, which I still don't totally understand. Can anyone help me on that?
No, I can't help it all here.
Okay. It's like
It seemed like a very out of left field moment.
Like we know that Gygus is a threat. We know that he is somewhere, but he's attacking us from the past, and we can't transport organic matter into the past. And all of this just hits you all at once, and is a little bit of a Final Fantasy 1 twist. It's like, oh, the real enemy is 1,000 years in the past, but he's someone from the present. It's like, what?
I blame Pokey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I blame him for everything.
I guess
terrible.
I guess if Gygus is the same creature from Mother 1.
Right. Well,
and this game is basically, like a retcon or a reimagining of that game. Maybe it's I don't know. I can't even begin to explain it, but maybe they're blah.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Now, let's get into a little bit of Mother 1 spoilers, which is a game that I do not like and don't totally remember. But you're a boy named Ninten, and Gygus was an alien that was found by your grandfather, and you sort of uncover Gygus' story of him landing on Earth and horrible things happening to him. I think he was tortured by the government or something.
Yeah, he's more of like an E.T. crossed with Cthulhu. He's more sympathetic in the first game than he is.
E.T. is a fair comparison. Like, what if the E.T. movie had just gone really horribly for E.T.? Is what Gygus' arc in Mother 1 is like. And I think that in the final dungeon, in the final boss, you're fighting Gygus and Pokey's alongside him, and you can't do anything to Gygus. Most of your attacks will reflect, and Pokey's just taunting you the whole time. But after
Pokey is so scary.
Yeah, after you deal enough damage to Pokey for him to retreat, Pokey tells you that Gygus is so powerful that his own rage has torn his mind apart, and he is nothing but hate and anger. And I'm wondering if that is from like the Mother 1 story. It's like he was so mistreated in Mother 1 and didn't have any sympathetic ears other than Ninten's grandfather and maybe Ninten and his friends. That this is what happens when a powerful being is exploited by adults and turned into a monster. I'm like, maybe, but I
think he was adopted by the Queen of Magicant as well, who was Ninten's grandmother.
Oh,
is that right?
I don't remember all of that, dude. I didn't make it past Mount Itoy.
I kind of want to play Beginnings, but I also kind of don't.
I mean, it's hard to go back to NES RPGs being people living in the 2010s. Because how would I describe it? Like the quality of life adjustments aren't there. But I think that Mother 1 is particularly bad mechanically, even for a Nintendo RPG. And I come from this from significant bias. Like I hated trying to play that thing.
Some NES RPGs still hold up today, but I mean the big problem with Mother 1 or is that in the back half of that game, Itoi got really, really bored. So around the Mount Itoi part where you gave up, he said to the programmers, "Look, I don't care anymore. Just put like a really high encounter rate with lots of tough monsters and let them go through that." So the design kind of went out the window near the end of that game and made it like an unbearable slog.
It's pretty terrible.
It's not so great leading up to that either.
No. Well, like Robert alluded to at the beginning, Mother 2 might be a retelling of Mother 1, or it might be a sequel. It's unclear if Gygus is the same alien from Mother 1 or not. But Mother 3 is definitely a sequel to EarthBound, but it's not 100% easy to see if Mother 1 and Mother 2 / EarthBound are in the same universe or not. But in any way, let's get back to that final boss battle against Gygus. This red and black twisted alien rage monster.
Also, like Pokey going from like the annoying kid next door to like in this like biomechanical. This machine that he's in, the Devil's Machine, it looks like something from like Kamen Rider Zoe. Like this awful like fusion of metal and flesh. It's really
the 90s Kamen Rider movies do go into a body horror territory that makes them hard watches nowadays.
Much like Pooh's Meditation, it feels so at odds with everything that's come before and everything that you know about his character.
Right, and it's interesting because he tells you that your party looks pathetic, too.
Yeah, he has a real fixation on being cooler than Ness. That is that is a very amusing motivation to me. Like at the very end, like when he departs, he even says, "Hey, which one of us is the cool guy?" And it's like really that's what you've been focusing on this whole time.
But yeah, it's funny you should bring that up, Hilary. It's like you guys are like these toy robots, and he's just this mess, this absolute mess.
It's like, I'll take my toy robot look with the baseball cap. Thank you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, Ness is obviously the cool guy because he's got that dope little cap. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I think Pokey annoys me, or I almost want to say Pokey's one of my most hated villains in a game, just because he's like that annoying kid from elementary school who would never leave you alone.
Yeah.
Just pretend he turned into a supervillain, but never lost his attitude.
Taken to a horrifying extreme. Like, one of the things about his, talking through the Gygas phase was when he says that Gygas is now this, directionless force of just hate and isn't really aware anymore. He basically implies that he's kind of exploiting it, and that's just whoa.
Yeah,
it's kind of zero redeeming qualities as a villain.
And Pokey's a much more extreme example of that kind of character. But when you talk about the annoying kid next door / elementary school bully, Pokey's attitude reminds me of definitely the most memorable character in the Pokemon series. Your rival from Red Blue.
True.
Really?
Yeah. Just because of that.
He's a lot less redeemable.
Yes. Yeah, no. Pokey,
he's more
Cartman. Pokey is more awful than Blue, but just the attitude of the annoying kid next door. It's like, hey Ness, which of us is the cool guy? Hey Red, smell you later. It's like I think there's a similar personality there.
He's also always like one step ahead of you too.
Yeah.
Each time you meet him.
He is.
And Pokey is a much more disgusting, extreme example of this kind of character. But I just think that there's similarities in tone, at least with the early version of Pokey.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, serious question. Is he worse than Cartman?
I don't know.
I think Pokey would want to feed you your parents, definitely.
Yeah, I think... And let's see, Pokey doesn't...
He's like a family-friendly Cartman.
Pokey doesn't really pretend to be a robot to embarrass you. He's more like he turns into the robot. And you turn into the robot. There's some robot stuff going on. I wonder if the whole Awesome-O episode of South Park really is just an EarthBound allegory.
They do look kind of similar.
A little bit. Those are some boxy robots.
Yeah.
And but also, Robert. I know you've heard this story. About Itoi seeing that film as a child.
Yeah, the policeman and the dismembered beauty.
Yeah. Do you want to tell that one? I have a feeling that we both know the story, but you probably have more details surrounding it than I might. So, do you want to go into that now?
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, like he made this film worse in his memory than it actually is.
Because he watched it by accident. He watched it by accident as a child, right?
That's right. Like, he was trying to find his parents in a movie theater, and he ended up walking into the wrong showing. And he remembered it as a pornographic film with a bare breast. Apparently, this film actually doesn't contain that.
Oh, okay.
But it's this erotic, grotesque thriller called The Policeman and the Dismembered Beauty, which is exactly what it says on the tin. A woman is dismembered, and a Japanese policeman is trying to solve the case. I guess there is a scene where the aforementioned policeman is squeezing a woman's breast, and she's saying it hurts and it feels good, and that is what Gygas is saying to you as you're trying to defeat him.
Right? Yeah. It's okay.
Boy, oh boy!
Yeah.
Childhood trauma deluxe.
Right. The story I had heard was he watched a movie with a rape scene in it, and that
it was actually a consensual scene, but it was a mix of pleasure and pain going on.
I understand. So I heard he
remembered it as a rape. He recounted it as a rape.
So I heard an abridged story of a version of the story that maybe didn't have every detail in it properly, but so him remembering that scene is is represented in that final fight with Gygas. It's just a lot of twisted red images and dialogue of I'm happy, it feels good, with it hurts, and it's really confusing and scary and dark and weird if you don't know that story. And even if you do know that story, I think it still counts as scary, dark, and weird. But
I just love the fact that he's put his childhood trauma as like the most scary character, and the most scary thing he can say is like this frightening memory from his personal childhood, which it's fantastic.
It's awesome. And I didn't the last time I played this game in the early 2000s, I had not heard that story yet. And but knowing that and playing it now, it made it make a little more sense, but did not diminish it. It's there's some real impact with that dialogue and those images in the final boss fight.
I mean, Gygas, it's a very surrealist take on horror. So having like all these different elements from different aspects of one's life, or like combined with dreams, I think it's a very effective way of getting across this sort of unknowable entity that is waging a psychic attack on you and can only be defeated through, the faith of your friends.
Yeah, and they do that pretty literally too in the last fight, because as you're going through, it says you can't understand the form of Gygas's attack.
Yeah.
But it's hitting you anyway.
And you can figure out what the form is. Like, it's hitting me randomly, and the Franklin badge reflects it. So it's like, okay, this is a lightning one, this is an ice one, etc. But the formlessness of it is, adds to the how scary it is, I think. And even though there's a lot of negative, hate, anger emotions in that Gygas fight, you have to basically defeat it with the power of positivity. It's a very Final Fantasy IV moment where everyone you've met along the way comes together to will you to victory, which you see that a lot of the time in RPGs. It happens in Persona 3 and Persona 4, but I still call them Final Fantasy IV moments. But and you have to pray 8 times in a row as Paula, and several people you've met along the way, including Frank from Moinette, which is maybe the least sense-making of all of the people that visit.
If you talk to him after you beat him, he's like, "Hey, let's be friends now."
Yeah, no, I did. I tried to look for him in the burger shop, and there he was, and he wants to be your friend now. And it was a heartwarming.
He wants to be a wrestler.
Yeah, his dream is to clean up his act and be a pro wrestler, and I've never been happier for an NPC in my life. Yes. But you see, I think it's 6 scenes of characters you've met throughout the game, including the women from Dalam, but not your master, and not any of the telephone guys, only the women. All the people from Paula's Element daycare where she works, and the Runaway Five, who are great, obviously, and it's. And Tony and the guys from the boarding school, and I'm wondering if Tony has more than friendship feelings for Jeff.
Tony is confirmed gay by you.
Okay, all right.
Oh, really?
I definitely got that vibe with the dialogue in the second half of the game. Tony is very interested in Jeff.
That's really funny, because I felt when you talked to Tony in the second half of the game, I felt like he was a little jealous towards Ness. I kind of got that vibe.
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
hey,
so cool.
Jeff is my best friend. I've known him for ages.
Yeah.
It's okay. Ness has Paula.
So, how about that penultimate prayer though? After you see the 6 scenes.
Yeah, like you see these
got goosebumps.
You see these 6 scenes of that are just so feel good and so positive, and then your 7th prayer is swallowed by the darkness, I think.
Oh my god.
Was the choice of words?
Yeah, that's
it's
it.
Like that's just a moment of, oh man, is the game just is this just an unwinnable game that takes you to the very end and then you lose and that's it?
Well, if you have the bootleg copy, yes. But
was that another case of Itoi just going, F this, I don't want to make the game anymore, let's have them all die at the end?
No. If you there's copy protection in this game where, like, if you're playing it on illegal hardware, or if you have it on a flash cart, an illegal cartridge, when you get to that battle, you'll get about halfway through it, and the game will hard lock, and then it will erase all of your saves.
Okay,
End.
I will say I am not playing this game legally, but that did not happen to me, so I must be...
Yeah, they patched it out eventually.
Okay. I'm a little glad now, because I would have been furious if I'd hit that.
The key for it on that one, though, is that it'll give you a warning saying something about, hey, piracy is bad. That's like the only notification you have that you're gonna have a bad time at the end of this game.
Yeah, I never got anything like that. And it's not like I know that some pirated copies of Dragon Quest V, you couldn't leave the boat at the very start of the game if you were playing if you were playing an illegal copy.
I experienced that firsthand, and that inspired me to buy that game.
Excellent, but at least that's at the very beginning of the game, and not in the final battle.
I'm not a pirate anymore. I buy all of my games.
I do too, but I wanted to be on this episode, and I don't own a new 3DS or a Wii U or a functioning Super Nintendo or a SNES Classic because that is not out yet. So I decided to jump through a hoop to play this game when maybe I shouldn't have. But
are we gonna have to like beep this whole segment out? Maybe,
I don't know. I might leave it in and just tell people, hey, don't pirate games, kids. Don't be like Uncle Mike. But anyway, back to the final battle. It does end happily. You do win with the power of prayer and positivity, probably.
You, the player, also win.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're the final prayer, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
I was in public when I got to that moment. Like, I was playing my 3DS in public, and I actually had to fight back tears. Because I know it sounds stupid, but like that really hit me hard to be like, hey, you believe in these kids too, right? And I'm like, I do.
Yes,
I've been with them this entire time.
Okay, this is going to be a reference that only old people understand. But have you guys seen the Mary Martin version of Peter Pan?
I have.
And at the very end, when Tinkerbell's dying, Mary Martin breaks the fourth wall and tells the children in the audience to clap for Tinkerbell. And when I watched that, when I watched that when I was 7, you bet your ass I was clapping. I was clapping along with Mary Martin to revive Tinkerbell. And this moment of you, the player, being the last prayer, reminded me of that. It's like, oh, they're going right through the fourth wall and having you, the viewer, the player, will them to victory. And that reminded me of, the old live-action Peter Pan.
Just a quick aside, I think that the American box art to Wonder Boy in Monsterland looks like a terrifying version of Mary Martin's Peter Pan.
I'm going to have to look that up later.
Oh, man. Okay, I will also have to look that up later, because I very much enjoyed the Mary Martin Peter Pan as a child. So yeah, it's a really memorable final encounter for how twisted and dark it is, and how fun the ending of it is. And like we mentioned before, you do a sort of Dragon Quest-like tour of the world at your own volition to see what the world state is like post-victory. And there's some very nice encounters, like meeting Frank in the burger shop. Did any of you meet the Runaway Five there? Because I couldn't find them.
No, I didn't, which made me sad because they were my favorites.
I checked Tucson, Forside, and Summers, and I did not know where they were.
Yeah, it looked like they were in Summers during the prayer sequence.
Right. So I checked there first, and then I checked the theater towns, and I don't know if you can talk to them in the final act, but I beat this game like less than 12 hours ago, more like 18 hours ago. So I didn't have a ton of time to research where they were.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they appear again. I don't think I ever found them again. I will say, though, that this ending blew my mind as a kid, and it still remains one of my favorite ending sequences that I wish more games would borrow from.
It's real good.
I guess like some of the later Persona games kind of did a similar thing, but they give you an epilogue to
close loose ends or talk to people about the events of what happened. It's a very nice bow on the experience.
Wiping out the entire world of monsters, and then traveling through this entire JRPG world where everybody has new dialogue explaining what they're up to. It was so memorable to me, and I remember just like I would just beat the final boss of this game over and over and over just so I could, back before there were such things as save states, so I could run around and talk to everybody. It was just it really felt like, wow, this is like a slice of life adventure game now, and it left such a lasting impression on me.
I would have liked to spend more time exploring around the end game. All I did was I wanted to talk to Frank and I wanted to talk to the Runaway Five, and I only got half of my wish. But Keegan, I know you mentioned coming to tears a little bit during the ending, but what what thoughts and feelings ran through your head towards that epilogue segment, being new to this game?
I felt so rewarded by it. There was like a contentness in my heart, but I kept wanting more. I didn't want Pooh and Jeff to go away. I wanted to keep hanging out with them. It was
Pooh has some ladies that need his attention.
True, but the more I think about this line, it kind of reminds me of when you're growing up. Your kid friends kind of go off into different directions, and it's sad to see them go. But you just have all these great memories with them.
I cracked up when he went, okay, Psy, farewell, and he spun away, and then presents.
And man, dude, thinking back to Tony's feelings about Jeff, one of the presents that drops down is a letter from Tony, and it's a very heartfelt letter to Jeff. That at the end he says, "Jeff, don't show this letter to anyone." It's like, oh boy. And just mental image of Ness and Paula exchanging a glance and backing away.
Oh, speaking of Jeff's, family and close people, I think one of the times I was like most upset over the course of the entire game, going back for a minute, is during that whole robot transfer, just because I had this moment of realization that Jeff's father was doing this
right
to him, and that just, oh my god.
He's like a bit of a neglectful, like almost abuser.
I feel like it's better throughout the story.
Definitely distant and neglectful, and they do express, both Jeff and Dr. Andonuts express a desire to become closer to each other right at the end of the game, which is nice. Yeah. But not until he throws his son into a UFO and turns him into a robot that he might not be able to return from. Yeah.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that Andonuts can help it. He seems to have like a mental impairment that has made him like this brilliant scientist, but just doesn't really understand what a family means.
I can see that. I just remember being like frustrated through this half of the game, like watching him work with the Apple Kid. I'm like, how good your son is at this too, right?
The only one of them with an attentive father is Paula, because Ness's dad isn't exactly
He's
best,
splashing the cash.
The best. Well, okay, yeah. He's literally your ATM, and not just figuratively.
You can tell that Ness's dad cares, but he's very like the Japanese salaryman who's just he's at the office. And he's there until after you go to bed, and then he's there before you're awake. But also, I think he's not a deadbeat.
You're right. He is not a deadbeat, and you are on the phone with him a lot. But I still think that might contribute to the tone that Itoi sets of adults being unavailable or distant or oppressive. And it's like your father's never there to help, even though he is helping.
It's a very I think it's a very Japanese thing with the father portrayal in particular.
We talked about Persona a couple times. In literally every Persona game, your father is a distant character who is either dead or disgraced or absent.
Indeed,
the protagonist's father.
But I think in Persona's case, it has a little bit more in common with erotic visual novels set in high schools. It's trying to recontextualize the high school experience as something that's like fun and flirty, and you don't have a familial authority figure hanging over your head, whereas I think EarthBound is more like, maybe not such a critique, but like, I don't know, a nod towards, I guess this is how the nuclear family is now. The dad is just constantly at the office because he has to be, otherwise he'll be considered not a team player and he'll be fired. But that's just my take on it.
No, I think your take on EarthBound is absolutely right in this regard. For Persona, I think it's more just to establish you as more of an independent youth, and having your parents literally there. But in Persona games, your parents are never there, but there's always a reason. They're always working or something. I think it's more to make you an independent character.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like the key visual arts games like Clannad and Canon and etc. All of those games, like you're a high school student, but you live alone for reasons, and that you can get up to your own adventures. So I see Persona as like kind of borrowing from that a little bit, or vice versa.
Right. Okay, so we have talked about EarthBound a lot over these past couple of weeks. So do we have any final things to address or final thoughts before we say our goodbyes and talk about what's coming up on Retro Encounter?
Yes, really fast. EarthBound cooking show.
What? Oh, okay, yes. Hilary, please tell us about EarthBound's wonderful wide world of food and seasonings.
Yes. So I'm bringing this up because there are seasonings and condiments that go with your food, and they go on them automatically, which is a kind of fun and sometimes unexpected touch. So things end up happening, like being in the middle of the Stonehenge alien-based dungeon, forgetting that you have hot sauce in your inventory, and having Ness think it's a hilarious idea to hand some spicy jerky over to Jeff with a bunch of hot sauce on it, and then Jeff getting very little HP from it.
And so which character likes hot sauce? Because am I correct in assuming that the characters have different tastes and will respond to different condiments accordingly?
I think they do. There's not a huge amount of variation, but from my little bit of experimenting, they do. I mean, like you said, Pooh, I mean, there are a lot of foods that just don't heal him very much.
Yeah, I remember it was a dungeon shortly after getting him. It was the Pink Cloud Sanctuary. I kept trying to heal his PP with certain items, and because the seasonings in my inventory, I think it was because of the seasonings in my inventory, he didn't like anything, and he would gain 0 or 1 PP from items that should have given him several.
Yes.
Some joker poured a bunch of hot sauce over some beef jerky, and that gave like a super HP boost for me. But I just why would you do that?
Who did you feed it to though?
I think Paula had it.
So Paula likes hot sauce.
Spicy food.
And Jeff
what are you
doesn't.
doing dipping beef jerky in condiments? That's not wrong. That's not on.
Well, I think I'm going to try doing that in probably an hour after we're done recording.
Yes, we need to experiment.
Right?
Using a beef jerky like it's a tortilla chip.
Hey, I can buy beef jerky, and I got a bottle of sriracha right here. Let's experiment. I'm in short distance from the bathroom.
Very irony.
Truthfully, though, I've not tried sriracha on beef jerky, and now I am kind of curious. So is the EarthBound cooking show over?
I think it's going to be a continuing process. I actually kept some save files so I could check it out a little bit more.
Try adding that hot sauce and that jar of deli sauce to the rice gruel. See if you can improve it.
Yes, exactly.
I want to know what that deli sauce exactly is. That's too vague a term for me.
It's usually some kind of house mustard or or fancy mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was wondering, is it mustard? Is it mayo? Is it both? Is it oil and vinegar?
It's like I don't like adding mustard to things, but you have to have that weird spicy mustard when you go to the deli and get a pastrami and corned beef. It needs the mustard. I don't understand why. I don't like mustard, but it needs the mustard.
That's just how it goes, man.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yep.
So, I think we're done with the EarthBound Cooking Show for real now. Now it's time to thank you, listeners, for listening to us through this EarthBound adventure. We have several interesting Retro Encounter episodes upcoming. We are going to be playing Grim Fandango in August, the classic LucasArts adventure game, which I have not played, so I'm interested in experiencing that for the first time. But before then, we also have special episodes about GameCube RPGs and a special Pokemon episode in the next couple of weeks. So, if you want to contact us, the best way to do so is to email retro@rpgfan.com. We read everything that's directed to us. And if you want to reach us more directly, you can go and comment on the rpgfan.com boards or on the rpgfan.com Facebook page or on Twitter @rpgfancom. So, enough with the RPG Fan stuff. Starting with you, Keegan, where can we find you on the website and on social media?
You guys can find me on the boards as Fozzie Bear, and if you're in the Twitter sphere, you can find me there as Kaylee Brand. Feel free to drop by and say hi.
All right, and Hilary, your turn.
Yes, so I am EP Fire on the boards, and I still don't have an active Twitter.
RPG Fan podcast staff have a fine tradition of not being on Twitter. Which is my way of saying that Rob should probably get a Twitter. I mean, Rob Steinman, that is. But we have a different Rob right here, right now. Rob Fenner, how can we find you on the website and on social media?
I'm Artemisia on the boards. No, I'm joking.
This podcast is over.
I'm Townscar Marty on the boards, and I'm on Twitter at Misanthrobob, and I'm always up for talking about the Mother series. So that's that. If you haven't played EarthBound, you really should. It holds up incredibly well. There's so many ways to get it now. Play it. It's wonderful.
I expected to like this game, playing it again for the first time in 15 years, because it's most of the time the really good games in sort of the canon of classic games are good for their own reasons. But I truly was surprised at how many new things I noticed and how it felt different playing it as an adult than when I first played it as a child and then as a teenager.
Super postmodern.
It's a very special, very thoughtful game, and I think it's a must-play for RPG fans. I say that with 100% sincerity. So, if you want to talk to me about EarthBound or Japanese superheroes or anything at all, you can do so on my Twitter at @TheRealMonsoon or on RPG Fan where I am Monsoon. So I think that's about it, fellas and lady. Thank you. Good night and good luck.
See ya.
Bye.
Laters.